Elmaz Abinader has been at Mills since 1993, and she's currently the W.M. Keck Professor of Creative Writing. She holds the MFA from Columbia University and the PhD from the University of Nebraska, and she's the co-founder of VONA, Voices of Our Nation's Arts Foundation, workshops for writers of color, now held at the University of California, Berkeley. Her work has been honored with a Goldies Award for Literature, PEN Award for Poetry, and she's held Fulbright Fellowships and several residencies. Her publications include a memoir, Children of the Rujmi, a book of poetry, In the Country of My Dreams, and a play, The Country of Origin, which was most recently performed at the Kennedy Center. Her works appeared in numerous anthologies, including the new Anthology of American Poetry. She's currently working on a memoir, a book of poetry, and a novel, and she'll be reading from the memoir tonight. Elmaz.
Welcome, everybody. One of the things that you can do if you're a brilliant graduate student and you graduate from Mills is start a literary journal. And one of our grads, who is also our CTP facilitator, Kyla Gifhan, created a journal called Generations, and I read this piece there, and I'm going to read it again here. So if you were there, feel free to text. If you weren't, put those phones away. Okay, the only thing you need to know about this part of the memoir is Yemen is a country. Black veils were pinched under their chins, and their smiles intensified when they heard my name, Elmaz. Among some other things, Amina, who was the Sudanese director of the Women's Abuse Center, told them. One of the women grabbed my hand and pushed up my sleeve. They stared at my arm that had been modestly hidden by a long-sleeved tunic. Amina said, "If you want to have henna, your arm hair has to come off." She made it sound like an exhaling balloon. I snatched back my arm, glared at my hosts. We were standing in an alley. Dust rose from a small breeze. Only a few of the major streets were paved in Aden, so I couldn't tell where I was. One dusty corner looked like another. Rows of sandy-colored houses, small decans in the bottom of corner homes selling K-Cola and greasy chips. The women started moving. Was I going to be whisked away into some secret location? What plans did they have for me? We had come this far by car and was dropped off at the corner. I had no idea where my hotel was. The women kept chatting. Amina was nodding her head. Yemeni Arabic was a mystery to me, all guttural coughs and grinds. They were still focused on my arms. In my life, I have been waxed and threaded and nailed. I know how the sensation of having my tiny hair ripped from above my lip and under my chin. But as I stared at my softly coated arms, I wanted to grip them close to my body and run away. I looked up and down the alley. A camel car crossed an intersection. It was loaded with bananas. No room for me to jump on and take off to the market where fruit hung like jeweled earrings. A couple of boys in baggy shorts were kicking a black and white ball against the wall. The two women forged ahead. "Where are we going?" I whispered to Amina. "To her house." She pointed to the taller raven sailing away in front of us. "I'm sorry," I said, "but who are they?" Their abayas ballooned, and I wondered what was under their robes. These were not the height of my miniskirt and see-through blouse babes I met in Saudi Arabia, or the artsy jean-clad writers from Egypt. The introduction to these two women was all garbled in a mess of folks from the Yemeni Women's Conference and other internationals who had come down from Salna with me. The house they led me to was almost bare. The main room had one window that was opened onto an alley. A satellite dish was perched there. A day bed served as a couch. Amina bent toward me. "Nadia and Huda." Yes, I nodded, but who are they? Members of Parliament. A young, unveiled girl offered me tea. Nadia and Huda disappeared into another room. Members of Parliament? There was no way of my knowing. Oh shit, I was hoping these women didn't think I was an American moron. "It's no luxury to be an MP here," Amina said. The paint was peeling off the wall near the door. "Yes, I guess not." Nadia and Huda returned. Amina rose, and the two parliamentarian women flanked me and motioned for me to extend my right arm. I lifted it up and pushed the sleeve. One of the women bent behind the couch, and I could hear a plug snap into the wall. The other one pulled out of her long boring machine, a little bigger than a razor, FB lady, etched across its plastic surface. My eyes must have filled with panic because Amina started to laugh, and the other woman stroked my back. When the springs on the bottom of the FB lady hit my arm, experiences with waxing and fretting felt like a massage. At a zillion miles an hour, hair was ripping out of my arm. It felt like I was rolling my arm along the body of a cactus. The noise filled the room, and I had to stare through the window to the little bit of Yemen sky I could see. It was slow, crazy slow. The noise was a swarm of bees, and they all were digging into my arm. Shouting was out of the question. Nadia and Huda and Amina were chatting away, oblivious to the assault of my poor fur. Tears gathered in my eyes, and I shut them tight. My arms were bald, red. I ran my hand along my skin, which was surprisingly pale. The next thing I know, we, my shiny arms, Amina, Nadia, and Huda, were in the streets again, moving quickly. We were almost running, making little clouds with our heavy shoes. Children in uniform passed by in a group, their veiled teachers in the back greeting Nadia and Huda with bowed heads. I wasn't catching on, was I? I was with members of parliament. We stopped in front of the bigger house with a small pink neon sign in the window in Arabic. This is the salon, Amina told me, where you will get the henna. The woman here is the best freestyle artist at Aden. We went through the green door and entered a palace room. Striped and brocade pillows were set in groupings all around the perimeter. Teardrop Moroccan red lanterns hung from the ceiling, and ornamental drapes portioned off but didn't hide sections of the room. There were 2 hairstyling stations with blaring lights on one end. A woman was seated with curlers and honeycombing her hair. A young woman behind her turned to us and exclaimed Arabic greetings and came to me, kissing my cheeks 3 times. This was exciting. I was in a Yemeni beauty salon, not the hotel one where the internationals went, but the insider salon, and I knew this was special. I was led to a group of pillows and motioned to sit in the middle like a pasha. Nadia and Huda spoke to the stylist, whose name was Sumaya. She nodded her head, drew her hand up and down her arm, apparently discussing the details of my soon-to-be decorations. Amina explained, Sumaya came to Aden from the desert when she was 14 to marry a distant cousin, older of course. She was clever and bargained her relationship with him until he set her up in the salon. Now he brags all the time that she is the best artist in Yemen. Sumaya couldn't be older than 23, I imagine. You need to take off your blouse, Nadia said to me. I pulled off my tunic, and the women screamed. What had I done? Was I being immodest? I wanted to clutch the blouse against my chest. Amina laughed again. They have never seen such muscles on a woman. They think you are strong like a man. I am, I answered. Everyone took off their abayas and veils. The henna would take 3 hours to dry once Sumaya was done with the application. Tea was set up, cookies put on a tray. Here we were, the picture bride artist, 2 members of parliament, the director of the Women's Abuse Center, and some other customers, all sitting together, a real women's conference. Like any salon, the chattering was continuous. Voices of women raised, argued, they laughed and smiled. Amina sat beside me as Sumaya put curlicues and flowers at my arms, birds and poetry. I was enraptured. What's everyone talking about, I wanted to know? Marriage, children, gossip? This is a salon after all. The conversation was exciting. The young girl from the desert who served us stopped in her duties to put her 2 cents in. Hoda and Nadia listened to her, to other customers, to Sumaya. At one point, one woman in the curler rose and tore her pins out and shook her head. Amina leaned toward me and began her translation. Weeks later, back at home, I loved Sumaya's design on my arms, stared at them in the bathtub, wore short sleeves so I wouldn't lose sight of them. As they started to fade, I was afraid the whole experience would also disappear. I caught a glimpse of the bottoms of my arms as I was doing tricep presses at the Y. One of the morning regulars noticed too. Hey, that's beautiful, he said. Did you get it done in Berkeley? I dropped my weight hard. No, Yemen. Whew, he said. Excuse me? Yemen was now my favorite country, so I was ready for a fight. You know, Arabia, you have to cover all the time, walk behind men. It's horrible. How do you know that? I asked, grabbing my weight. I saw, you know, not without my daughter, stuff like that. Well, I let the 25-pound dumbbell drop to the ground. There are arms iced like an elaborate wedding cake, with other women away from men and children, away from house and society and talking, not about hair, clothes, household cleaners, or children. As I sat there surrounded by women trying on different lipsticks, combing each other's hair, filing their nails, luxuriating in the attention of a henna artist, they fought fierce about the direction the country should go in terms of unification and economic development. They got angry and they were tough. Members of parliament, hairdressers, maids, neighbor women screaming in Arabic that rattled my brain like the wires of the epidemic. And in the end, they kissed as we walked away, and I smiled admiringly at my own arms. I racked the weight